Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we're going to be carrying on with the exceptional story, Death and Tax Evasion. And we're about to assist the oft revenuer. Find her seated outside a coffee shop, puffing away at a black cheroot. The other patrons give her a wide berth. You're not sure if it's because of her smoking or her profession. All the deaths have left their mark. She no longer looks entirely alive. Her eyes are deep set, her cheekbones sharp as knives. We shall move on to our next assignment. I knew I was right about you. The revenuer is positively gleeful. Next, we shall tackle my deadliest foe. Here, says the revenuer, tearing a page from her notebook and sliding it across the table. Excellent work so far. A glance at the scrap confirms its value. Tax records of some of the most prominent figures in society. Ingoings, outgoings, expenses. Enough juicy details hidden in there to give a gossip columnist a case of the vapors. The revenuer has already bent back over her paperwork. I've got enough to go on for the moment, thanks to you, she says. These cases are going to require my full attention for the foreseeable, but I have another assignment for you while I'm busy. A most elusive prey. The most difficult challenge of my career. The rats, she says. Her voice drips with venom. Their markets are everywhere. Trading, smuggling, earning. But no tax makes its way to the masters. I want to be the first revenuer in London's history to successfully tax the Rattus faber. It won't be easy. They all send tithes straight to their paltry excuse for a church, until there's apparently not enough for my coffers. The revenuer stares hatefully at the floor, as though imagining a taunting rat between her boots. I can mention the crisis of rat kind. You've already decided to investigate the activities of the LBs. Or I can keep quiet about what I know. Just to keep your cards close to your chest. The revenuer needn't know what you know. Let's go with that option. Let's keep it to ourselves for now. Get going then, says the revenuer impatiently. Come back to me as soon as you have any worthwhile leads. Okay, well I guess we have to get the guidance of the scabby lay rat. Come on, says the lay rat, gnawing nervously at his own mange-riddled flank. The Archbishop's waiting, and we don't want them to catch us knocking around either. When you ask about them, he cringes and pulls at his whiskers. Them as follow her, he explains. Well, let's follow the lay rat to the church. The lay rat leads you to a sewer gate. Oh no. Down there? And we're back in the sewers. Fantastic. Down you go, corroded rungs groaning under your weight. Your boots splash through foul-smelling water. In the shadows around you, tiny eyes glimmer. St. Algernon's just up ahead, says the lay rat, voice echoing. In the event, just up ahead translates to a good mile's walk. Eventually, you find yourself reaching the place where the sewers broaden out and drain into the black maw of the Zee. Here, where wastewater meets saltwater, the rats have dragged the rusted, limpet-crusted hulk of an old steamship. Its chimneys have been flattened and narrowed into a steeple. Its portholes have been decorated with stained glass murals of rodent saints. Candles festoon every surface, bathing the tunnel in a gentle light. The lay rat scuttles ahead, squeaking with excitement. You follow him through a door carved in the hull. Inside the rust-splotched wreck, the interior walls have been deliberately collapsed, creating a cavernous space. Items of salvaged furniture have been dragged inside. Sagging tables, waterlogged couches, mould-blackened beds. Rats crowd every surface, thousands upon thousands of rats. The number of rats is one thing. The strangest thing is the silence and the stillness. They flow smoothly out from underfoot as you make your way in, but otherwise they're still as statues, focused resolutely on the wooden lectern at the very centre of the makeshift church. Standing atop this lectern is a small white rat with a custom-made mitre perched delicately upon his head. He appears to be delivering a sermon in a tremulous voice, reading from a copy of the Bible far larger than he is. Let's listen to the Archbishop. Perhaps rat ears can hear this whispered sermon, but yours can't. You need to creep closer. As you make your way closer, a few rats break the silence to grumble about your great, clod-hopping feet. But they shift aside, giving you room. The lay rat scuttles behind you, apologising on your behalf. And yeah, there shall be no mourning, and no crying, and no grief for those whose spans are cut short, groans the Archbishop. For in his wisdom he has granted mercy to the... He pauses at the end of the page, sighs, then sprints back across to the other side of the book. With a wheeze of effort, he heaves the page overhead and turns it, then resumes his reading after a moment's pause to catch his breath. For the chosen of his flock, and though our suffering may still be great, our candles burn until the last. You recognise the passage, an excerpt from Saint Cyriac's edited Bible. Holy words, updated to make spiritual sense of the Neath. Of course, we rats do not experience death as the humans do, concludes the Archbishop, looking up. For us it is rather more permanent. No rat has ever met the boatman, but I still think there is much to learn from this passage about the mercy of God. Some of the watching rats shift discontently. Keep listening. Nonsense! Blasphemy! Shrills a voice from the rat masses. A single rodent stands up amidst the crowd. That's her, whispers the lay rat, who has clambered up to your shoulder. She's the one who's been causing all this strife. That book means nothing to us, declares the recusant rodent. Her voice carries much further than the Archbishop's. God's word has been twisted by humans to serve human ends. We are rats. We die all the time. Are we supposed to accept that this is God's plan for us? The Archbishop is tremulous. But nevertheless, I think there's a lot of meaning to be found. If we have to bend over backwards to find it, perhaps it was never meant for us in the first place, says the rodent, her voice dripping venom. Well, isn't this an interesting scenario? We can either voice support for the Archbishop. The lessons of the Bible can apply to all sentient creatures, even ones of whom a violent death comes more easily. We can back up the rodent's words. It does seem like Saint Cyriac's Bible never references the plight of a common rat. Or we can decide not to interrupt. This is a matter for rats. Doesn't seem like your opinion would be welcomed. I'm going to not interrupt. Good idea. Best to keep your mouth shut, whispers the lay rat in your ear. The rodent pulls out a scrap of paper and waves it over her head. There's another way. A way both older and newer. The Marine edition of the Bible holds God's true word, not the human's bastardization. Someone grabs for the scrap. A number of rats pull out tiny razor blades, shivs, and even miniature pistols before launching into one another. The service erupts into violence, while the Archbishop desperately tries to calm it down. Well, our scabby lay rat is loyal to the Archbishop. Let's see if we can do something here. The recusant rodent has already scurried back out into the sewers, leaving chaos in her wake. You're not sure who acted first, her followers or her enemies, but now the church devolves into madness. Balls of snapping, snarling fur whirl back and forth across the floor. Blades flash in the dark. Only a minority of rats are actually fighting, you notice. The rest scatter in fear. You spot rat parents dragging squeaking rat children along by paw. Please, put down your weapons, begs the Archbishop, his mitre askew, his lectern knocked to the floor. He tries to sing a hymn about peace and fellowship, but his reedy voice is utterly lost in the melee. There's never been fighting in the church before, frets the lay rat in your ear. Oh dear, this is no good. Alright, so we have a couple of options. We can disperse the melee. If you knock out the biggest troublemakers, the rest will flee. We can wait for the dust to settle. Never put yourself at the wrong end of a rat's shiv. Might have been Sun Tzu who said that. Yes, definitely was Sun Tzu. Or we can fire a warning shot with our ratting piece. It is, after all, the weapon that rats have learned to fear. I don't actually have a ratting piece because I'm not a rat catcher. I like the rats too much to become a rat catcher. It's, I am going to disperse the melee. Let's stop this madness. This has gone too far. Wading in, you slap a few of the rowdiest rats senseless. The remaining rabble break apart, glaring at each other. But your intervention has sparked a moment's peace. Please, begs the Archbishop again, take this elsewhere. This is a holy place. To your surprise, the rats look shamefaced. Even the biggest, ugliest ones. One of them grabs his own tail and twists it nervously. With muttered apologies, they scuttle off into the tunnels, dragging their unconscious comrades with them. You're left alone in a near-empty church with only the lay rat and the wretched Archbishop for company. Let's talk to the Archbishop. The scabby lay rat approaches the defeated-looking Archbishop and places an awkward paw on his shoulder. It never used to be like this, says the Archbishop. This church used to be where rats put aside their differences. It was a place for homilies and hymns. What happened? He looks up at you with rheumy eyes. The rat, you realize, is very old indeed. For a rat. As a human, or at least something somewhat human, you could help me a great deal. He offers you a wobbly smile. I mean to approach the Bishop of St. Fiacres for help with dealing with this schism. My hope is to call a general synod. I could suggest a few amendments to the Bible that addresses the concerns of rat kind. Unfortunately, the bishop has not been diligent in replying to my past messages. Perhaps if you were to accompany me, he might be more receptive, so we can either agree to help the Archbishop, who could resist the twitch of those whiskers, or we can tell him that the affairs of rats are beneath us. Bad enough that you're in sewers witnessing the scuffles of vermin. You don't care to involve yourself any further. No, we're going to agree to help the Archbishop. Let's go. We happen to know the Bishop of St. Fiacus quite well. Thank you. Some dignity returns to the Archbishop's bearing. He squares his tiny shoulders. I need to tidy up my church, he says, looking around at the spilled incense and toppled candles. Perhaps you could meet me at St. Fiacus Cathedral, near Spite. You nod your assent. You know your way back, right? Asks the lay rat, jumping off your shoulder. I'm going to stay here and help put things in order. Okay, let's go. A rat synod. The Archbishop of Rattery waits for you outside the cathedral, dressed in full regalia. Mitre, crosier, globus, crucinger, the works. Even in London, this is enough to cause a stir. A nearby urchin stares in open-mouthed wonder. Well, let's petition the Bishop of St. Fiacus. The Bishop proves a difficult man to get a hold of. The Archbishop suggests approaching him during his weekly sermon. The sermon is in full swing when you and the Archbishop arrive. The Bishop of St. Fiacus has closed his eyes, reciting a biblical passage from memory alone. At last, the Archbishop's impatience gets the better of him, and he scampers up to the Bishop's lectern, causing the latter to suppress a shriek of surprise. "What are you wearing?" asks the Bishop, staring down at the tiny rat in mitre and vestments. The congregation, suddenly woken from their torpor, titter and murmur. The Archbishop clears his throat. "I am the Archbishop of Rattery," he says. "I come to you with some concerns about the latest editions of the Bible. Perhaps a general synod is in order. There is division brewing in the rat community, you see, and..." The titters have turned to full guffaws. The murmurs have become snorts of outrage. The Bishop looks out over his congregation, reddening. "No," the Bishop raises a hand. "You may be religious, but you have not been ordained into this church. I'm not unsympathetic, but cannot change the word of God on your behalf." "But Bishop," exclaims the rat, "we don't recover from early death like you humans. Surely you can see how the current text makes us feel excluded." The Bishop hesitates. For a moment he looks rattled, but then he composes himself. "I'd appreciate if you'd stopped impersonating a member of the clergy, Archbishop." He makes a sharp gesture. A squad of choir boys usher the Archbishop out of the building, chased by the glares and jeers of the parishioners. "Well, thanks for the help, Bishop. Did you hear what he said?" asks the Archbishop, scuttling along beside you. "He didn't even seem to think I was a proper priest. Most bizarre. I've been in the clergy my whole life, you know." He shakes his head. "Well, there's only one other thing I can think of. We have to go to St. Syriac's directly. Perhaps we can persuade God's editors to pray on the matter of the rats, and see if divine inspiration strikes." I am already a member of the God's editors, so this should be more easy than expected. You're a member of the college yourself, of course. Gaining access is a simple matter. Inside the illuminated college, a clatter of typewriters is inescapable. The querulous theologian is ecstatic to see you, and invites you and the Archbishop into her office for tea. I sympathise. I really do, she says. But you know how it is. We're working on very tight deadlines with these new editions. If we took out time to address the matters of rats, what next? Would we dedicate whole chapters to the complexities of the rubberies, the drownies, snuffers? She sips primly. I wish we had time and manpower, not to mention our strict limits on word count. The holy book needs to fit into a chest pocket, or how else will our soldiers survive bullets? I see, says the Archbishop. You mentioned that you thought college doctorate was to account for even the lowliest of Neathly denizens. The theologian nods. Oh, it is. We do mention the rats here and there, don't we? Formanus 16:5, Elijah 4:11, Vigilus 7:13, recites the Archbishop quietly, and Psalm 195. There you go. The theologian beams at you. There you have it, says the Archbishop. We did our best. Let's return to St. Algernon's. For now, there's nothing more you can do. St. Algernon's church is empty today, bar a few shuffling rats lighting candles for their dearly departed. The Archbishop has done an admirable job of cleaning up after the disturbance, but there are still a few bloodstains. The scabby lay rat is here, sitting thoughtfully on a stolen chaise longue that appears to be doubling as a pew. He waves cheerily at you. The Bishop of St. Fiacres sent a letter of apology for dismissing our concerns, he says to the Archbishop. It seems we caught him unaware in front of a, quote, particularly pious congregation. He sent leaflets, look, on underground rubbery faiths. That's nice, isn't it? But I don't think he's going to help us call a synod. Let's ask the Archbishop about his next step. The better book, it seems, can only change so quickly. What now? The Bible spoke to me when I needed it most, says the Archbishop. And the same goes for many good rats I've known over the years. I can't throw all that away over a bit of religious politics. We have to bring the rodents' followers back into the fold. He pauses. But I must admit, I haven't much looked into what she actually preaches. Perhaps I must learn more about her theology so I can counter it. A good start would be if you could gather the scraps of the Maureen edition for me. The scraps? Isn't there a single copy sitting on a shelf somewhere? At this, the scabby lay rat speaks up. Oh, they say the Rat Bible is written on 1,000 scraps of torn page corners, written in the ink and blood of cranberry sauce, scattered in gutters and stuffed inside hidey holes across London. The Archbishop nods at the lay rat. Quite so. Can you accompany my human friend? Some of those hidey holes may prove too small for a human, and we've got to search for the Maureen edition of the Bible. You're sitting at your breakfast table, relaxing with the morning newspaper, when you hear an oh-so-familiar knock. The oft revenuer has been busy, it seems. She has bags under her eyes, and a few fresh scars. She sits across from you and fixes you with an owlish stare. How goes your investigation into the rat church, then? A sly glance across a plate of crumpets. My agents have been tracking you. I know you've been down to the sewers. Well, it's time to update the revenue. She already knows the broad strokes, you might as well give her the details. She listens carefully, asking the occasional pertinent question. Her hand is a blur as she makes notes. Good work, she says when you're finished. Keep looking into this schism. Divide and conquer, that's the ticket. When we know more, we can go after the Archbishop and this other faction in one fell swoop, clap up everyone involved in the new Newgate wing of impecuniary corrections. She slides a bottle across the table. A token of my appreciation for all your work so far. she says, sickly sweet. You think you can buy me with a bottle of Greyfields? Oh, it is first sporing. Oh, that is actually quite a nice bottle. A vintage often reserved intimates and proteges of Mr. Wines. But before we go in search of the Rat Bible, I think I shall end this episode here. I'm going to thank you all so much for watching. I'm enjoying this one quite a lot. I am a man who enjoys theology quite well, and the idea that the rats are having this weird discussion, I'm finding incredibly interesting. But please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. Thank you again to the members and the coffee supporters. It really does keep the channel going. And as always, I'll see you next time.